Hi again. Welcome to Pearl Magazine. The National People's Congress passed a bill last week to enact national security laws. This came after more than 1 year of civil unrest that was triggered by the proposed extradition bill. Violent protests immediately returned over the weekend, and Western leaders expressed outrage against Beijing.
Still, much remains unknown as to what and how this new development may impact Hong Kong's autonomy, guaranteed under the one country, two systems principle, and how enforcement may take place. Will mainland officers be allowed to execute their power in the SAR? Will foreign investors start moving out? And will this turn Hong Kong into just another Chinese city in the long run? Alice Kahn digs in.
Bonnie Leung is heading to Central to join others to protest against the national anthem bill at lunch hour. After months of delay, lawmakers resumed a crucial second reading, which was interrupted by pan-democratic lawmakers. Once it's passed, it will punish those who disrespect the Chinese national anthem.
We have to try, because if we don't come out, the consequences would be our home will be ruined, our system will be ruined, and we cannot bear these consequences. Whenever there is a protest, when I believe that I can join in a peaceful and legal manner, I will do it.
The introduction of the bill has brought protesters back onto the streets after months of social distancing rules to battle the pandemic. Anti-government protests started last June when the chief executive, Carrie Lam, tried to rush through the passage of an extradition bill that would have allowed the government to extradite suspects to mainland China. Many feared it would be used to crack down on political opponents. The government denied that was its plan. Millions of Hong Kong people took part in peaceful protest marches. But soon violence flared as police clashed with black-clad protesters. The unrest grew to a level not seen since Hong Kong's colonial era. The bill was eventually withdrawn, but the violence continued. Bonnie says she's even more determined to add her voice to the fight against the government over the national security law.
The government is to try to create these chilling effects, try to silence us. No matter how hard it is, we'll continue to struggle, continue to fight in order to protect our freedom.
Beijing voiced impatience with the violence and bristled at the references to independence and revolution. Leaders alleged the protesters were receiving help from foreign forces.
由于反中乱港势力和外部敌对势力的极力阻挠干扰，香港特别行政区完成23条立法，实际上已经很困难。
Their patience finally ran out. On May 22nd, just ahead of the National People's Congress, the party leaders proposed to implement national security laws in Hong Kong. Pending details, a new law would be enacted to punish acts of secession, subversion, foreign interference, and terrorism. The proposal was approved May 28th in a near unanimous vote on the last day of the National People's Congress. Still, it will take up to 4 months to draft details of the law itself before it becomes part of Hong Kong's laws. Despite the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, black-clad protesters returned to the streets to oppose Beijing's move.
Hong Kong people are afraid of this kind of national security bill because we are afraid that Hong Kong will become China. So this public anger will not simply go away.
It's all too familiar for lawmaker Regina Yip. In 2002, Yip was the Secretary of Security, responsible for launching a bill against treason, secession, sedition, and subversion. That was Article 23 of the Basic Law, a provision that says the SAR must enact a local law against theft of state secrets and to prevent foreign political organizations conducting political activities here within these boundaries of the People's Republic of China, where the one country, two systems principle is highly regarded. The government started a consultation in September.
Back in 2002-2003, the central government was much more relaxed about the national security situation in Hong Kong because there were no obvious threats, no subversive or secessionist activities. So the version that I championed was actually very moderate. You may recall Mr. Tong gave 3 more concessions, such as tightening the power of the police to search without warrants.
But Democrats fear the law would violate basic human rights, especially freedom of expression and assembly. Opposition led to a mass rally of 500,000 Hong Kong people on July 1st, 2003. The government eventually withdrew the proposal. Regina Yip stepped down. Executive Councillor Ronnie Tong, a barrister, says the proposal to enact national laws here will bring a new dimension to Hong Kong law.
If it involves a question of disrupting public order, then we have the public order ordinance to deal with it. But where it involves calling for the downfall of the SAR government or calling for independence coupled with violence, it is debatable whether we have sufficient legislation in Hong Kong to deal with events, possible call for secession, possible call for subversion. So, but if a national security law was to be enacted, that there wouldn't be any doubt the court could easily apply that law to deal with the current situation in Hong Kong.
But Johannes Chan, a legal academic at the University of Hong Kong, has doubts whether the new law will be useful.
If you look at the last 9 months, we have arrested over 8,000 people. And you are telling me that we have no law to deal with that. For those who set the bomb, we have the criminal offense. We have riot, which carries up to 10 years imprisonment. We have offensive weapons. We have possession of weapons for unlawful purpose.
Beijing has said it could set up mainland security agencies in Hong Kong if the need arises. Professor Chan says the new law could be too vague.
Anti-terrorism or foreign interference or even subversions could be anything. These are extremely broad terms. They could cover a lot of ordinary, perfectly normal activities, and they could infringe on freedom of expressions, on personal liberties unnecessarily.
The Bar Association has also weighed in its concern, questioning whether mainland agencies have legal power of enforcement and whether such powers would be bound by the city's laws. The national security law must be inserted into the basic law in Annex 3, according to Article 18. That bypasses any scrutiny by local lawmakers in the LegCo. Ronnie Tong says other countries have their own laws on national security. In the U.S., the federal government has laws to ban sedition and subversive activities. Violators face up to 20 years imprisonment. The Spanish government sent Catalonian separatists to prison for sedition and violating the country's constitution. Beijing's move triggered strong reactions from several Western democracies.
I am directing my administration to begin the process of eliminating policy exemptions that give Hong Kong different and special treatment. We will be revising the State Department's travel advisory for Hong Kong to reflect the increased danger of surveillance and punishment by the Chinese state security apparatus. We will take action to revoke Hong Kong's preferential treatment as a separate customs and travel territory from the rest of China.
Foreign investors and businesses are watching closely. Kinsey came to Hong Kong in 1992 and now runs a marketing company. She says the new law is worrying and that she fears Hong Kong will become just another mainland Chinese cities.
I became more cautious. I really do think it's a nail in the coffin for freedom of expression in Hong Kong. As a business, I actually started noticing that I was self-censoring around the time of the Chinese booksellers. Just because at that time, I was aware of the fact that someone could come to Hong Kong and disappear you for publishing something.
Kinsey says the national security law will affect her confidence in running her business.
The introduction of the national security law changes the atmosphere of Hong Kong. How it's implemented and enacted will affect the business, the day-to-day business of Hong Kong, and we don't know what that's going to look like.
For now, Kinsey says she'll stay put in Hong Kong, but keep an eye on political developments.
Up next, to look at a few local startups who've managed to do well during the pandemic.
Stay with us. Welcome back. As the coronavirus rips through businesses, many are finding it difficult to stay afloat, even the large corporations. Logistics has been hard hit, and the impact is felt everywhere as hospitals and governments aren't getting their PPEs, and the cost of certain products has skyrocketed.
Problems with the global supply chain have disrupted the flow of goods, but I spoke to a few homegrown startups that have managed to plug those gaps and are seeing rapid growth as they move quickly to help governments, hospitals, and other industries get their goods in a timely and efficient manner.
I can imagine those are kind of annoying neighbors that
So are these machines new?
Yes, so these machines are still new. So it came out about the beginning of last year. Previously speaking, it was all manual, so it took us around 45 seconds to do one parcel. Now it actually takes us about 3 seconds.
So how many items do you process here a day?
These are pallets, so every day we have around 40 to 50 pallets of stuff, which is around 5 tons. So you have to process those 5 tons in a day. You don't actually need to have a cabin anymore.
Wilson Chan set up his freight forwarding business in 2014 because he found ordering goods from popular platforms was costly and complicated.
We give you a unique username and an address in the US, or address actually around the world. So you use that as basically your domestic shipping address for deliveries. So when you get these domestic deliveries, you just bring that back and then we forward it for you to wherever you want to pick it up. On average, a user saves around 30%, inclusive of logistics, on the value of the goods.
With consumers getting smarter about global arbitrage on pricing, services like Wilson's are doing well. They currently have 675,000 users over 11 countries, along with warehouses in 9. And as people stay in and social distance, they're letting their fingers do the shopping more and more.
We still see very strong demand, especially in Hong Kong. I think after the whole Hong Kong situation, and I think the home office thing allows people to do more shopping than I think they would have previously, which makes it very interesting because now everyone's in a habit of buying stuff online. So we don't see the trend going away.
He says they saw the mask buying trend among their Hong Kong consumers in early January.
Once the supply ran out in Hong Kong and the price started skyrocketing, people started looking everywhere. So our Japan warehouse, our US warehouse, our Italian warehouse, UK warehouse, all exploded. Korean warehouse, Thailand warehouse, everything exploded with masks. And basically what ended up happening is we shipped something like 35 million masks during February and March, just for Hong Kong. If you look at it, 90% of all masks are still made in China. So it goes from China to the US back to kind of Asia in general.
During the pandemic, their customer base expanded to include governments, and goods reversed outbound from Hong Kong. In this warehouse, is this mostly consumer goods? Do you have like another floor that's mostly PPEs?
Yeah, so actually right now this floor itself is dedicated to consumer goods. We actually have another floor that's all dedicated basically right now to masks. It's actually double the size of this. So the square footage on that one's around 30,000 square feet and it's all full of masks right now.
And where are those masks going?
All over the world. So we have orders from Germany, France, Spain, US. Basically every week we're just always sending stuff outbound.
So far, they've sent 50 million masks outbound in 6 weeks. Their infrastructure and logistics setup of small air freight orders was a good match for another startup that partnered with them. Mineshpur's platform was set up in January. It allows users to source directly from manufacturers. What mask is this?
This is the KN95s. These are the ones that are one of the most popular items.
How much business have you done in this?
All these products together, we haven't done a breakdown, but in all these products together, like I say, we've already shipped more than 10 million US dollars. That's like almost 100 million Hong Kong in 7-8 weeks.
Mineshpur had been planning his outfit for over a year.
Retailers across the globe, brick and mortar retailers are declining. According to KPMG data, in 2018, there were 9,900 brick and mortar stores that went out of business, while retail industry was still jumping. That means that a lot of small retailers, small online sellers, etc., were going in business. They won't be able to travel as much.
They wanted to build a platform to make virtual buying for manufacturers easy. At the time, they didn't imagine it would be a pandemic that would be driving their business.
Coronavirus has been our biggest catalyst. We would have got to that business probably in 5 years, which we did in a few months. We started getting some people approaching us saying, we need products. We just don't want you to find only the suppliers, but also help us find the product and get the product out of China and get it to us.
In order to do that, he decided to partner up with 3 other startups, including Wilson's. Minesh's company sourced manufacturers and had their own freelance sourcing professionals who could provide best matches for buyers. But he needed people on the ground in China for quality control, and he needed data insights on supply and demand to keep pricing under control and delivery on time for his clients.
It's not just about sourcing the factories, but it's also making sure the documentations are correct, the factories follow all the norms of the markets that it is being shipped to, the testing standards are met, the packaging standards are met, and then the shipping times are met.
One of his now clients, a clinic in Budapest, Hungary, learned the hard way when they first tried to source their masks on an e-commerce site.
I placed the order, and then a week, 10 days go by and no shipping. And then, I waited another week, no masks, and the tracking information wasn't working. And then I had to complain. And ultimately, this seller returned my money, but this was after 4 or 5 weeks.
Through his alumni network, he found out Minesh was supplying what he needed.
He had access to factories that are producing the masks. And I asked him, does he have the FFP3? Price was almost, it was almost too good to be true. If it was anyone other than Minesh, I would have thought, okay, this seems too cheap. But the thing is, I don't think I've ever bought anything directly from a factory before. I think it took a little over 3 weeks, but we got them.
For Dennis, having properly certified products is key, since he says there have been lots of fakes sent out, and ending up with any of those would be bad for his business. He's now looking at sourcing antibody tests from Minesh, since one of his manufacturers is on Johns Hopkins' recommended suppliers list.
The other thing that we're talking about is getting the antibody tests. There is a list of, I think it was put out by Johns Hopkins, of antibody tests and even the PCR tests. Minesh has, one of his suppliers has these antibody tests. One of the manufacturers is on the list. So we're looking at ordering some of those, both for this clinic in Budapest and for our soon-to-open clinic in Rome.
Aside from small clinics, Minesh says they've been working with state governments, city and national hospitals. Their partnership with a manufacturing and design company gave them access to a wider clientele and people on the ground in China who could run quality control with manufacturers. Michael Hung, whose family has had the business for 40 years, says it was a big change for them to go from promotional products to PPEs.
Our clients came to us and we were in a unique position because we've got people on the ground in China that could assist them with sourcing products.
Since January, they began supplying PPEs.
Globally, an entirely new category has been developed overnight, really. And so they have also shifted their business models and are looking at masks, they're looking at hand sanitizers, They're looking at all kinds of PPE products, and so the entire industry has really changed.
What kind of difference does that make, having people on the ground in China to verify? How does that differentiate the service you provide than, say, others looking for PPEs in China?
The reason that people are running into problems is because there was a lack of due diligence. They weren't looking at the audits, they weren't looking at the reports, and most importantly, they didn't have people that were actually inspecting the product. That's really the key and the difference in working with a company like ours, right? And that's why you're seeing so many problems with counterfeit products and defective products. People don't know what they're being shipped.
And since you've changed into these PPEs, would you say her business has grown this time last year to now?
We're expecting we could possibly double our business this year. We prepared for possible layoffs and restructuring, and just the opposite's happened. We've been hiring aggressively. In fact, we don't have enough people, so we're still looking for more people.
To complete the chain and make buying easy for customers, data is key. Max Ward, who's had over 20 years' experience with big logistics companies, founded his company this year to create more transparency in the supply chain, so companies had a better idea of buying trends, what is available to source, along with delivery lead times. They provide the insights on Manesh's platform, which show product availability, certification, cost, and delivery time. Consolidating all this data also brings costs down for customers.
What we're seeing is a rapid shift in terms of how quickly companies and buyers need PPE. And when we look at those different types of lead times, we can make a big shift from air to ocean. And it basically brings down the logistics cost per piece, 50 times. So instead of looking at 40 or 50 cents per piece, you're looking at 1 cent or less.
And the data allows buyers to keep up with the ever-changing list of recommended providers, along with trends of other items that might see a rise in demand.
This set of in-demand items and SKUs seems to be constantly changing. And the set authorized suppliers for those SKUs, one day it's 70 factories in China, and the next day it's 14. We're able to provide a view quickly into what inventory is available from what suppliers, and also interject promotions and recommendations that are valuable to those buyers.
So as the virus changes people's lives dramatically, it's also changing the way business is done. With supply chains, transparency, collaboration, and having the speed to react has been key to the success of some of these small but feisty startups. It could be just what this small territory needs to adopt as a whole. Well, that's our show for this week. Next week, we look at how one man's mission to travel the world before returning home has been put on pause by the pandemic.
And how a lack of bodies is making it difficult for medical students here in Hong Kong. That's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.